This is BizPulse. NUMSA is challenging the country's minimum wage announced by Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa earlier this year and later approved by Parliament into a bill. Department of Labour says it cannot change the bill, but it will hear the grievances of the unions pertaining to the minimum wage. It also says that it's only the Parliament that can amend or change the bill. The Department of Labour held public hearings in Johannesburg's Turffontein area over the implementation of the 3,500 Rand national minimum wage policy in May next year. Now, NUMSA claims the figure is too low and will lead to poverty, whereas COSATU has accepted the new bill and it has been endorsed by the Cabinet. NUMSA claims that not all unions were consulted.
As the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, we need to make it very clear that even though government can claim that they consulted Labour on this issue, the facts are that they did not. NUMSA and SAFTU are not part of NEDLAC, and this is by design. SAFTU has been kept out of NEDLAC by the parties who are already present at NEDLAC. There is a collusion between FEDUSA and COSATU to ensure that SAFTU does not join NEDLAC, because they know very well we would have rejected this nonsense national minimum wage, as well as the proposed changes that they want to make to the labour legislation and this peace accord that they want us to sign.
Look, I think on the national minimum wage there's not going to be a change on the 20 Rand. That's been agreed. It's written into the bill. We're moving forward to implementation. Parliament, of course, has the final say on legislation, so we do have to respect the outcome of the process in Parliament. But that agreement on the 20 Rand, whatever shortcomings it might have, is something that we committed to implementing. We signed off on that as part of the agreement with the social partners.
Majority of the labour unions have welcomed the 3,500 minimum wage policy. COSATU says it wants some leadership from the government side to make sure that the Labour Department is prepared for the rollout of the minimum wage. While FEDUSA says the Federation welcomes the bill, that's exactly what they have agreed on at the NEDLAC. Well, joining me in studio to discuss this further is Phakamile Hlubi, NUMSA spokesperson. We also have Chris Malemacha, that's the Sanko-Gauteng Provincial Chairperson, will be joining us on the phone line. And Paul Mudang, COSATU West Rand Deputy Chairperson, will be joining us live. Hopefully you're at home. Welcome to joining the conversation. Starting with you, Phakamile, you're challenging this minimum wage.
Yes, absolutely. As the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, we've made it very clear that first of all, when government claims or NEDLAC claims that they consulted all labour on this issue, the fact is that they didn't. SAFTU is not part of NEDLAC. SAFTU represents almost 1 million workers. So that is not a block of workers that you can ignore. What the problem with NEDLAC is that it's filled with trade union federations whose role really is to rubber stamp government policy at the expense of workers and their families. Right. We have a serious problem with the national minimum wage, not because we're opposed to it in principle, but we're opposed to government's decision at pegging it at such a low rate of just 20 Rand per hour. Not only is it an insult to the generations of workers who fought and died to end apartheid in this country and achieve a dignified life, but also it really is a reflection of the fact that this government is not serious about dealing effectively with the legacy of apartheid and capitalism in this country and the impact that it had. The fact that apartheid in this country was used as a way of super exploiting black and African labor, we see that continuing even today, where this government has agreed to a poverty wage of 20 Rand per hour. And that's why as NUMSA we reject it, because we believe that if they were truly interested in radical economic transformation, as we've been hearing them claim, then they would have pegged it. First of all, they would have done proper research on what it is that companies can afford. And secondly, our proposal as NUMSA has been that it should be sector-based, because our experience is that there are some companies who can afford to pay more. So why shouldn't they pay more?
Why should there be a blanket minimum wage? That would be your concern. Okay, we'll come back to that. I have a guest on the phone line, Mr. Chris Malemacha, Sanko Gauteng Provincial Chairperson. Very good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Some would ask how much of this disagreement is about trade union battles, or is it really about the worker that is looking to have their minimum wage raised?
Thank you very much, the viewers down there. I think we must address it this way to say there's no way that NUMSA will ever agree with any progressive initiative of this government. Number one, they are agreeing that they are not part and parcel of Netflix together with their staff. When the negotiations start, SASTO was not yet born. But we know this very well. Now, from zero, those who have been paid as less than S1,000, today going forward, they will be 3.5 going up. It's not to say we are satisfied, but we are saying it is a start for a better life for all. If NUMSA, they are saying they don't want this, what is it that they want? The only thing that they are trying to see here is a petty politics that are placed by this union so that they can get members. What is it that they are putting on the table in the form of offer? Nothing. So SASTO is new. SASTO must just align like any other thing that comes and found that the wheel is moving. So I don't think NUMSA is fair, and it must never bring its own cheap politics that they fought in COSATU simply because they are not in agreement in COSATU. So they don't agree with anything that COSATU agrees. This has got nothing to do with COSATU. This is a government initiative which was not there, and indeed it is addressing the leaders of apartheid. When it was apartheid, they have never ever touched minimum wage of such amount. As we speak now, it's never. It's going to start. So what is it that we need?
Chris, well, we seem to be having a terrible connection with you there. We can hardly make out what you're saying, but I think if I understand the gist of what you're trying to relay is the issues that you have with NUMSA. And I think it brings me back to the same question that I had. How much of this is really about the people? And, how much of it is about the trade union wars that we've seen playing out in the media as of course, we follow the stories?
I think, frankly, it's quite opportunistic for organizations such as the one represented by the gentleman on the phone to suggest that this is not about the people. This is very much about the working class in this country. This is very much about the fact that for the last 23 years, the ANC, first of all, abandoned the Freedom Charter as a way of radically transforming the lives of South Africans. Secondly, the ANC has chosen to embrace capitalist and neoliberal economic policies, which are the reason that right now in this country we are facing the crisis of extremely high levels of unemployment, extremely high levels of inequality, and extremely high levels of poverty. The very same conditions that were affecting members of the working class under apartheid are still affecting members of the working class today. Then they come 23 years later with a proposal of just 20 rand per hour as a national minimum wage, when the rest of the world is actually fighting to increase that minimum wage into a living wage. What we're demanding as NUMSA is a living wage. If this government is serious about radically transforming the lives of South Africans, they'll do much better than 20 rand per hour.
But is it fair to peg South Africa with the other countries in the world that have perhaps more developed economies to say it should be on the same par as you're saying you're comparing it to other countries?
Well, as I said at the beginning as well, first of all, I think it's important that you look at what is actually affordable. That process wasn't even done. NUMSA,
the feasibility process. Sorry, I just have to take another guest that we have. Paul Mutang, a very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. You're from COSATU. You're quite happy with the minimum wage as it stands right now. In fact, you've said it's a step forward for the country.
Yes, no, thank you very much for having me on the show. There are three facts that we need to confirm. One, NUMSA is not part of NETLEC, or whether you can say SAFTU, because of political issues that would have happened in COSATU. Two, What stands out of NETLEC and in cabinet and in this country that we need to confirm is that the minimum wage is 3.5. The reason I'm saying this is because of NUMSA can't argue on the perspective of a bargaining perspective in their own sector only. Because this minimum wage, when the panel of experts looked at it, it was broadly on across board. NUMSA can't give us an argument based on 20 rands that is paid in their own sector and say, therefore, the minimum wage seeks to say everyone else should be paid 20 rands an hour. That on its own, first, it's wrong, because we need to establish to say, in terms of other sectors, how much is the determination, so that we can be able to say, because for previously, you would understand that most people per month were receiving around 2,300, 2,700. So this minimum wage of 3.5, we have actually further proposed to say workers who are working 45 hours per week must be 3.9. It does not only end at 3.5. 3.5 is for workers working for 40 hours per week, and we have further extended it to 3.9. So NUMSA's argument is misplaced in this instance, because they further go into apartheid issues which are not in relation to what we are speaking of currently. Thanks.
But do you concede? Yes, I'll come back to you. Do you concede that not all unions were consulted, Paul, and perhaps maybe if they had, all these other issues would have been ironed out going forward?
Remember, NETLEC on its own has got a labor component. So SAFTU comes as a new union. You can't consult new kids on the block. You consulted them as what? NUMSA was part of, when negotiations started, NUMSA was part of COSATU. And NUMSA subsequently, based on political issues, moved out of COSATU, and other unions followed, and they formulated SAFTU. So SAFTU can't want to be treated special. NETLEC is a forum of government which consults people on government issues that relate to national importance.
Paul, we'll have to leave it there. Yes. Thank you for clarifying that, because I promised you just in very few seconds to quickly respond as we've run out of time.
First of all, COSATU is misleading the public when they say it's 3,900 or 3,500. It's 20 rand per hour. There's no guarantee that you're going to earn 3,900 or 3,500. In fact, as what we found out today from the public hearings, there is nothing in the law to stop employers from reducing the rates, first of all. Secondly, NUMSA was expelled from COSATU. We did not move out of COSATU. We were expelled from COSATU. And thirdly, the fact that we're not part of NETLEC is actually neither here or there. The fact of the matter is this government claims it has consulted labor. We represent a major block of labor. At least close to 1 million workers are represented in SAFTU. And that is not a block of workers that can be ignored.
That's quite a number of people. Paramila, thank you so much for your time. That's the NUMSA spokesperson, Paramila Hlubi, Chris Malemacha, Samkuk Gauteng Provincial Chairperson, is also joining us, and Mpho Motong from COSATU. Thank you so much to all my guests. I certainly appreciate your time. This has been N7 Biz Past. Stay tuned. We have more news and updates in just a moment.